I never deny. Yeah, I told you I would never fold, even in the cold. I never lose my hope, back against the ropes. The sun's flower from the concrete is where I rose. It's just perspective, ain't no location for highs and lows. I can't believe the lie no more, the truth is in my soul. Holy Spirit, hold my pen, I'm writing with a ghost. The war's on, my hands are up, I'm fighting on 10 toes. I ain't come this far, fight this hard to make myself known. And I can't switch sides no more, the focus in the road, yeah. And I'm trying to eat, yeah. My plate garnished with goals. I keep my faith, they Yahweh, keep subscribing to.
All right, so sorry, Weed, you're here. You missed the earlier one. Did you catch the video? It was good. Oh dear, dropping bombs, problems. Okay, well, this stuff doesn't stop for the RCMP. I forgot to mention this stuff, but I wanted to focus just on that one. Oh dear stuff. Now, Tracy, how's it going? Cheers. Charlie, Lynn. I'm not sure if any of you are all familiar with this one here. RCMP was responding to a missing person in Coldstream, Colchester County. The search was in a densely wooded area, and the person has been located and is safe. Now, looks good on the onset, right? Just like search or any of these other things. Hey, Mike, DC, what's going on? No, this is not in reality. More RCMP shenanigans going on here. It sounds like missing person, right? Well, that's what it says, missing person. Yeah, well, you read through it here. Hey, I've never seen a missing person complaint result in roads being blocked off, cops with assault rifles patrolling, and neighbors being told to stay in as well as lock their doors. More missing person stuff. This is interesting. This is coming from the same police department. Oh, congratulations, says Jennifer. But there was a bunch of complaints from people who lived in the area, and they actually, hey, Kim, welcome. Glad you could join us. There was a bunch of people that complained, except that you left out the part about members flying off with lights on, blocking the road, diverting traffic, all standing armed with assault rifles, telling people to stay in and lock their door. Only one reason for that. Now, the other groups that are on Facebook, the other Rampage group is one big one. There's 3 of them, I think, 3. They actually let me in with my account. I was surprised. I think I had to get a personal vouching from somebody, though, which was really good. But this, they were all talking about it because there's many people who lived in this area, and they were all aware. Listen, you blocked off. This is all around the kind of in the same neighborhood as the Shuby stuff, apparently. And they blocked off the roads, had their guns out, and telling people to stay in their homes. Somebody actually made a comment, I think, in here. Let's see. Oh, are they? Oh, this is good. Oh, yes. Okay, so the same person said this. I remember a similar understated warning for a firearms complaint being put out to the public when there was actually a mass murder on the loose and had already killed 13 people. I was hoping the RCMP commissioner wanted to build trust and transparency after their catastrophic failure. So, they don't really learn. They shot and killed a person last night down there for a supposed mental problem. And I saw that the Twitter line was blowing up with all kinds of congratulations, RCMP, you guys are super. Really? These people are psychopathic, and they really don't care about their citizens at all. It's really crazy. This province has less than, I don't know, it's about 800 and some odd thousand people for the entire province. That is, 500,000 less than my city? And I'm telling you, we got problems here. But nothing like they got going on down there. People are getting shot and killed. They're turning on alarms for construction sites. They're not turning on alarms for mass murderers. They think they turn on the alarms. I like that one. Leather's like, oh yeah, we did turn on the Amber Alert. I think we turned on the Amber Alert. No, we didn't turn on the Amber Alert. We used the Facebook and the Twitter because it was unfolding. Oh, yeah. That it has to be one of my most classic quotes that he did. Ranks right up there with very superior, and but of course those things you have to remember. Turn the switch, please, I beg of you. Turn the switch from, oh, this is a lot of incompetence, seems to be gross amounts of incompetence going on here, to this is outright full-on intentional lying, deception, and covering up. They're very criminal and poor behaviors. Not a police force that you want serving anybody in this country. They're not just people with radar guns. These are not gravel road cops. These are highly intelligent, huge intelligence service. Let's see if I can locate that article. Somebody sent me. People send me all kinds of good stuff. Half of it goes in here, and the other half goes, I'm not sure where, somewhere. But let's see here. RCMP, Colchester. Auto. Let's see if I can find it. Pretty sure I have it on my phone. How's everybody doing? Shot on his doorstep. This is horrible. Why do we have police services shooting people? It's not really going well in conjunction with what's going on down in the United States, obviously, because and I can't tell whether that is, let's not put the tinfoil on. It's just very, very bad timing. But the RCMP needed a correction long ago. We're talking about Campbell's ex-wife, Dawn, and I today. Now, where did that person send that? All kinds of places they go. I don't know what they're doing. Is it in the docs court? Remember to join the docs court if you haven't. It's good times over there. There's a couple RCMP, I think, in there. It's lots of good times. Is it here? Oh, I think I know who sent it. Okay, that isn't turning out. Why, oh why can I not find the article? Oh, here is an excellent picture, just so we know that Mr. Chad Morrison didn't have a wounded foot the next day. I know I have video of him somewhere, but somebody sent this to me over on the docs court. Thank you. He's walking around just fine. So he wasn't shot in the foot. I wonder who it was. Bit strange, don't you think? Guns being pulled. Great Village standoff. Ugh, it's just like nonstop down there. They had the suicide attempt down on the Portapique Beach Road sometime back too. I think they shot and killed somebody there as well. Okay, that's not it, is it? Maybe it's not on the docs board. I know I had it. Do I have it open in a tab somewhere? RCMP. Oh, this might be it. If it chooses to open, it's going to take a while because it's auto archiving. I like to auto archive all my stuff. Okay, that's not going to load. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can find it on the computer. Interesting article because they had some interesting people come in. I like that word, interesting. Come in and fill in for the people in Enfield. Hopefully that's enough. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, Bobby, what's going on? Corey, Amy. Okay. RCMP officers away, hoping to lift a cloud of sadness from Enfield detachment. Oh, there's that short sleeve shirt, don't you know? Oh, no tattoo, though. No tattoo. Corporal Tim Tong has enjoyed his time in East Hants, as has many backfill officers filling in for regular members stationed here who are off seeking treatment due to the April shootings. Main photo, Corporal Tim Tong, okay, blah, blah, blah. Enfield, an RCMP officer from the nation's capital, one of many to brought into backfill officers from East Hants, RCMP, off on leave as a result of the mass shooting 1819, is finding the community in central Nova Scotia amazing. Corporal Tim Tong is among those officers in the 4th rotation that have been at the Enfield detachment for the past month. The officers are filling in for regular members stationed here that are off getting treatment for the events that transpired over the 2-day span. Quote, it's such an honor to be here to help our members and to maintain service delivery in the East to the East Hants residents, Corporal Tong said. Corporal Tong, what I do in Ottawa is completely different. I direct connection to people the most. He said that people here are so welcoming. Quote, every shift I had when I came out to the community, people are coming up, thanking me for being here to serve the community. Really? How many people do you think are thanking the RCMP right now? We did get a few people. I think they're frankly bots over on their Twitter account for shooting that man last night. They did get a few thank yous for that. I did notice that. Quite a few. Shocking. In Ottawa, Corporal Tong is an operational reviewer analyst with the RCMP's Protective Operations Assessment Unit, Canadian Executives and Foreign Missions. In summary, he's the guy that gathers intelligence and prepares security assessments for federal ministers like Melaine Joly and Minister Chrystia Freeland, Canada's Deputy Prime Minister in Canada and abroad. He also performs the same task, making security recommendations to the level of RCMP protective services necessary to ensure the safety of those internationally protected persons visiting Canada. These VIP may include President Donald Trump and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Yes, I noticed that too, Corey. Yeah, there's some kind of Apple thing going on there, Adam's Apple thing or something. I don't know. Oh, yeah, no. Sorry, it's just bad light, I guess. Tim Tong has worked at most locations across Canada. He said, one thing sets East Hants apart from other communities he's been stationed at. I've been working in BC. I've worked in Alberta. It's not the same. It's a huge difference, said Corporal Tong. People in East Hants wave at me with all 5 fingers. It's refreshing. It's refreshing versus the particular 1-finger salutes we're used to. Frankly, I think probably they're getting a few of these down there. So I think Tim Tong might be taking you for a Tim Long ride. Okay, he understands that not all police interaction is positive for everyone in the communities they serve, but he hopes to make a difference. Corporal Tim Tong said he enjoys contract policing. Okay, that's what happens down there, contract policing. Lots of these RCMP contracts gone. There we go. Bobby saying the same thing. You know, people are frankly terrified of their own police force. So I don't think they're getting the 5, the big waves and all the big support that they talk about. That's a big bunch of bullshit is what that is. There will always be people not happy with our decisions. It's about how we take the time, discuss it, and have them understand the decision that was made. Really? You take the time and you discuss it. I wonder if they could tell that to Frank Magazine or at the end of every single news conference. Every single one. Oh, we're done now. Sorry, no more questions. We're finished here. That's over. It's done. No, we can't take questions now. We're going to the phone. No. We answered that already. Really? They take the time, according to Tim Tong. Currently, there is a local and national conversation about what's happening around policing. I think this is a national dumping on because they have absolutely screwed the pooch on this. Around policing and in Canada, that the discussion is centered squarely on the RCMP from coast to coast. Really? Oh, because they take the time and they're very transparent and it's very superior, don't you know? Corporal Tim Tong, who has been with the police service for 30 years, compared to police investigation, whether it's murder, robbery, theft, or whatever, to a jigsaw puzzle. The bigger it is, the more pieces that get to put together. Our role is to gather facts, pieces as we can, the whole picture of pieces, blah, blah, blah. We let the facts lead us to what happened. And Really? I call cleaning up crime scenes with backhoes and bulldozers and 13 hours, even for your own family members. Yeah, that was 13 hours you guys took to clean up a murder scene with a police officer, a civilian who was burned, 2 cars torched, an accident in 13 hours. But the next day you're out there scraping, you got your little shovels and you're digging for something that, you don't want people to find. Because that one's more important. 12 hours on Gina Goulet's house. Bulldozers bulldozed the entire business down in Portapique. The house wasn't even done on fire in Wentworth, and they were in there while the fireman is putting out the fire with a backhoe. What kind of crime scene investigation is this? Really? Corporal Tong, continuing on, Corporal Tong said the vastness of East Hants is most incomprehensible and how much area they must have to cover. Are you whitewashing your shitty job? Quote, how we have needed to travel from one location up to Mount Unaki. Okay, I'm going to butcher these names. Noel and Maitland. The response time is incredible. Oh, really? Incredible. I was actually cutting together the next installment for the, I don't know why it's got 2 there. Anyway, the next installment for the tape here. Do you know how long it took for them to have an ambulance come out to treat the first person? After their rapid response, which was how long? 25 minutes. And the person who was shot didn't get an ambulance call, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was for 43 minutes after the first 911 call. As they're sitting down at the end of the road, running away and hiding in the forest. The nature of the call, a couple of them related to firearms. We had to get there, but the officer safety was paramount. Officer safety, not civilian safety. Don't worry about those civilians. Oh, weed. There's a couple things. There's still a couple things floating. We're going to get to those in due time. He said that there's only a handful of members who are posted to Enfield that are on duty, with the remaining members off because of the tragic events. Well, they didn't have too many to begin with. There is a cloud of sadness hovering over the detachment. It's tough on the members. Excuse me? I believe that there was 21 other people who died. Please, I ask you, go back and watch every press conference. You'll see what I'm talking about. Remember how I talked about the RCMP shield? How they have to build the hero and talk about that so that you don't ask questions, because you won't attack somebody, supposedly attack them, by asking them questions. This is a very common tactic. It's used in psychology all over the place. You build up a hero, and then the person won't ask you questions because they feel guilt. Okay? Now, if you watch every one of those press conferences, they will always start with, it's a day of workers on front lines. This is the anniversary of the Moncton shooting. And they'll go on and on about their member, and they'll be like, then, and oh, yes, by the way, we're also sorry for the family. Excuse me? 22. Do you know how much time that would be? Think about it rationally if we divide this logically down into segments. Your member gets none. Your member gets none. The families there get lots of time. Officer safety. Firearms complaints. All over the place. Firearms complaints. Shooting people, running around with guns out. We've covered a bunch of those stories. I've asked people, hopefully they will DM me some stories down in Nova Scotia recently of people with guns out, as in RCMP people. Yeah, they're the criminals with the guns out, pulling them on all kinds of people. I don't think all policemen are bad. I never said that. I believe there are lots of good policemen. They have a really shitty organization that is led by shit, and it kind of rains down, and sadly some of those people get lost along the way. The good ones, the really good ones. We are able to bring in members from other provinces and their positive energy to spread and boost, to bring up morale, instead of having a shadow of what happened back in April remain. Well, what about all the families? What are you doing for them? Not a lot. It's a long road. Corporal Tim Tong said, being an officer in areas like East Hans, members can build relationships and interact with very superior techniques. And what's the other one? Oh, Jesus, the lines. Maybe that's fluid. I don't know. That changes. It's a moving target too, I'm sure. Building relationships, that's fluid. Depends on the day. Whereas larger centers, that's not possible, as they're going to call with not much of a break. Quote, here we have the luxury of time to take people to connect with people. Luxury of time. Is that like response time? Or is that the 4 hours that you're not on duty? I think that's the 4 hours that there's not, 24-hour policing service in this County? Has anybody ever heard of part-time policing? This is absurd. Any criminal would want to move down there and commit their crime between 2 and 6 because they're on call. So let's see if it took them 25 minutes to respond to the first 911 call and they're actually on duty. Can you imagine what it would be like if they weren't on duty? Oh no, I'm drunk. I can't make it in tonight. Sorry about that. Oh, I'm looking forward to our conversation, sir. To take time to connect with people, he said, and I think that's how we will excel in building that relationship. Here, it's laid back. Oh, yes. I think they're laid back. Don't you think? He said that the members deployed in East Hans are doing their best to help the detachment, not to help the civilians, not to help the people who you are supposed to protect. How about that? You see how it's all about RCMP? All the time? Officer safety, help the detachment, you take care of our own, it's our family. Oh, we're sorry about that too. All you 21 other people. We're sorry about that. We'll just leave some body parts in cars. Don't worry about that skeleton in the back seat. It'll go to the tow yard. Tow yard. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Help the detachment the best that they can. Some of the members on this rotation are investigators with the protective services. Really? This is what I'm trying to point out. You don't bring in people from PEI, from neighboring counties, from New Brunswick, Newfoundland. Well, I think they have the Royal. But it's the same thing. They get their same awards. Thanks for that, by the way, Todd. Todd sent me all kinds of good stuff. As does lots of people. So thank you, all of you. Please, thank you. You got a lot of policemen. But no. You bring in people from very interesting units out of Ottawa. To help the detachment, to help our members who are traumatized. How many other people have been traumatized? Anybody? Crickets? Oh, Onslow? Oh, don't worry about that. No apology here. We don't need to give that. What about the families still waiting for answers? Or what happened to their loved ones? Not important, but let's focus on the useless cops, though. Oh, but Charlie, don't talk like that. Don't you know everybody's behind the RCMP? Everybody. You're the one sole person out there who isn't. They all love us. We want to thank Canadians for the mountains of cards we're getting, the fan club that's set up for us. Governor General's security detail. These are some more people that are coming in. Protective services, so like Tong, Tim, Tong, Ting, Tung, Tong. Governor General Security Detail, members from Interpol, National Investigation, detectives from Cornwall, Ontario, all over Ontario with diverse experiences. We're here to help. Who are you here to help? Oh, that's right. Shut down roads? Draw guns on people? How about shoot citizens? How about that? We're all in this together. The good police people, you have to do the right thing here and you have to step forward. I had a disagreement today with somebody who was clearly a diss-op, and they were trying to tell me you can buy, anyway, I'm not even going to get into it, but it was just horrendous. And I just was like, boom, 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 facts. Oh, no, crickets? Crickets! Crickets! I don't hear anything from you now. People can come up and talk to officers, Corporal Tong said. No, I think people can run away from you like they do because they're afraid of you. I don't think Sharon's turn seems quite nice. The lady that we interviewed from Onslow, very nice lady. She's afraid. Any Nova Scotian that I've talked to is afraid. Bobby said in here he's afraid. Or he, she. Sorry, I don't know. Am I getting that wrong? By the spelling, it looks male. But people are afraid. I read it all over the forums. I hear it all over the place in the Discord. People write me. People talk to me on the phone. Afraid. Not here to help. If you were here to help, you'd give people answers. You'd stop returning bodies in cars, pieces of bodies in cars. You'd really do an investigation. You would not. Yes, a guy. Good. Sorry. I have to assume in this virtual world. This is how you help people. You start, I'll tell you one that's really sadly lacking in our society. It lacks in our own circles. Do you know what that is? I'll tell you. It's a big secret. Honesty. What's that, you say? Honesty? Transparency? Hitters. Afraid of feminist pigs. Out of control. Egomaniacs. Oh, yeah. I wonder if I should do that story now. This story is a bit longer. Because there's an interesting person in it. People can come up and talk to officers. Quote, we're not RoboCop. We're not machine. We're not a machine, he said. We are just everyday people like you. Just doing a different job. A non-transparent, secretive, violent, forceful job. Dishonest job. Looks like in many ways criminal job. Mr. Big operations are criminal in many cases. The RCMP become criminals, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Corporal Tong was asked about, after being in Enfield for a month, would he have wanted to transfer here if it was 10 years ago? He smiled ear to ear. Do you sense that this might be just a little bit of a whitewash, like a propaganda piece for the RCMP? Maybe just a little bit. Quote, drop of a dime. I would accept a transfer to be here, he said. While police work matters is the human connection. The foundation of the RCMP is about, what's that? Community policing. Really? Really? Community policing. Not once in there did I really hear too much about taking care of the citizens. The citizens, we've damaged our relationship with the citizens, and we've got a long ways to go, and we've got to fix it. No, what I've heard is you've got to take care of your own officers, and you're bringing in really strange people from very, very high level positions in Ottawa to come out to Enfield. People who take care of Donald Trump, prime ministers, governor generals, foreign ministers, they're coming to Enfield to give a photo radar or a radar ticket. Come on. I haven't talked to Tara, actually, funnily enough, in a couple of days. But she did message me today. I just haven't answered her yet. Bad on my part. But, let's see here. I was drinking, and an officer approached me in a parking lot. He asked if I had any weapons. I drunkenly replied, "No, but you sure do." He bounced my head off the hood of his car. You can't help but laugh. But, I mean, the laughter actually should be tears. Should be. You know, the laughter is a way for us to try to distance ourselves from this stuff because it's so terrible. It's tragic. It's really tragic. It's disgusting. It's immorality. It's criminality. And this is not what you want your kids to grow up to be at all. And all of those really, really good members in there should start revolting heavy and saying, you know what? We're done. I don't want this bad name that you've given us. We want huge change. Now, let's go into something new. Maybe I should start a second stream because of this. I don't know. What do I want? No, I don't want to rate your garbage. Go away. Okay. Let's see here. This was an interesting story. I just kind of stumbled across purely by accident. I don't know quite how I got into it. Where did that open up? Please open link. That's what I want. There you go. Something like that. All right. Anybody who's heard of this, please chime in. Yes, they use the comedy, right, to that. I'm not going to get into more specifics than that, other than to say using comedy is a way to help your mind overcome the horror that you're actually facing. They make you laugh at things. Oh yeah, politicians, they're totally dishonest. Don't worry about it. Oh, crime is out of control. Ha ha ha. That's really great. I will, Tracy. Thank you. I don't know. She will see it, I'm sure. She does come on every once in a while. But I will pass that along. Thank you very much for your good wishes. Have you heard of this individual, Kevin GRERGSON? Anybody heard of this person? Kevin GRERGSON is a former Canadian Mountie RCMP officer convicted of murder of Ottawa Police Constable Eric Zapnik. I probably butchered that too. Early morning, December 29th, 2009. GRERGSON was born of Métis descent on the Côte Reserve, Kamsack, Saskatchewan, raised in Ottawa after he was adopted at 2 days old by Faye and Reed GRERGSON. They were not given any medical information about his biological family, his mother's pregnancy at birth. Around 13, he started shooting animals with pellets. He became at times so uncontrollable, his mother would send him to the garage. He resisted his father's discipline and started running away from home at 16. At first for hours, then for overnight. One of these arguments ended in a physical fight, and his father, and in turn, he was kicked out of the house and ended up in living at the neighbors. He was later placed into child welfare for up to 3 months before returning home. At 19, GRERGSON had broken into his Latter-day Saints church in Ottawa and stolen some items, including a television. He was charged and convicted of that crime. He was not able to apply for work in policing due to this, so he waited 10 years and applied for a pardon and to have his record sealed, and then went through the process of applying to become a police officer. Sounds good. Okay. Sounds like he might have turned his life around, right? I don't know. Okay. He went on to Algonquin College, where he later dropped out for the environmental studies and their law and security courses. GRERGSON then dropped out of the nursing program, later completed a native addictions course. Gregson served an LDS mission in Salt Lake City South and Utah Provo. Okay, so we'll just kind of move on. Now, while working okay, here we go. After his mission, he took his job as orderly, first at the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Center, then at Riverview Hospital in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, sorry. While working as an RCMP officer in Saskatchewan in 2006, he threatened to kill an LDS bishop in Regina after having the renewal of his temple recommend refused. During this encounter, he pulled a knife and he stated that he was trained to kill. He was found guilty and received a conditional discharge. Gregson, okay, so Gregson graduated from RCMP Academy Depot 1998, 2000. He was cited for bravery for disarming a gunman in Pele, Saskatchewan. He was suspended in 2006 after a number of run-ins with senior officers. We're going to get into those. This is going to be a longer story, and you'll have to bear with my reading, and I don't even have my glasses. He was ordered to resign from the force in 2008, but appealed. On March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 2008, Gregson and his mother visited the Ottawa home of the then RCMP Commissioner William J.S. Elliott, where they presented cookies and documents. Afterward, Gregson received a suspension, as this violated his previous sanction after visiting his superiors, Regina's home. In 2009, Commissioner Elliott stated that Gregson had recently been suspended without pay and asked to resign from the RCMP or face dismissal. Gregson refused to resign and was in the process of appealing the dismissal after unnamed veteran RCMP officer remarked on Gregson's case, quote, "When I was in, they didn't discipline you out. They forced you out by making your life miserable. That remains part of the culture. That is what they're trying to do." According to the RCMP Act, they cannot place an emotionally troubled member into treatment, although they can threaten dismissal to persuade the member to receive treatment. The Ottawa Citizen found Gregson remained on the RCMP payroll during the disciplinary and termination proceedings. That gets interesting. Now, Gary, what's going on? And G's in the house too. I saw G was up here. The LSD mission. Yes, I know. Sometimes you have to pardon my reading. Murder of Ottawa police constable. At the end of December 2009, Gregson had 4 sexual encounters with a 10-year-old girl. In the early morning of December 29, 2009, at approximately 4:30 a.m., Gregson stabbed and killed Constable Eric Zapnik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. At the emergency entrance at the Ottawa Civic Hospital. After the incident, Gregson was apprehended by civilian bystanders, as well as 4 members of the Ottawa Paramedic Services before being transferred into police custody. He claimed that he killed Zapnik as a part of a failed suicide attempt on his part. He wanted a gun. This is going to be crucial, if I remember correctly, because he couldn't do it with the knife that he had. He later said that in a police video, "My intent was to die," he said in the video. "I so needed the gun. So I needed a gun. Police officers have guns. So I went to a hospital," he said during the interrogation and testimony. He tried to cut his own throat in the bathtub that night. He partly blamed his conduct on cranial colloid cysts, stuff in his brain he believed he had. The Ottawa Police Service charged Gregson with first-degree murder, robbery, and using imitation firearm in the commission of an offense. Okay. On March 13th, 2012, a jury returned a guilty verdict of the charges of first-degree murder and robbery with a sentence of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. This is the life sentence that you get in Canada. For first-degree murder is maximum sentence you're going to get, other than if you got deemed a dangerous offender, is life is considered 25 years. And then you have the ability to get parole. Not that I'm saying that you have to throw away the key like down in the States, but sometimes serious things demand serious things. When the sexual assault of the girl was discovered, he was also sentenced to additional 10 years to be served concurrently. Now, when I read this article, it's a Wikipedia article, so I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know anything really about the backstory. Who is this guy? Why did he do what he did? So I dug a little bit deeper. And frankly, I'm going to let you tell me what you think of this man after I read you this story. It is a very long story, though. It comes out of the Ottawa Citizen. Let's see if I can find it here. Lost in the line of duty. Here we go. And there's a name in there. There's a name. You'll know the name. Now, go down there and you... What? Connection failed. My ass connection failed. Oh, really? Problem loading page. Oh, look at this. Ottawa Citizen. Problem loading page. Try again. Try again. Okay, now I did stick this into archive. So, thank you. Archive.is. You want to play funny games? Seamus plays funny games. There. Should be there. There we go. Awesome. Yeah. Long article, like I said. But please let me know and bear with me for my reading, please. Kevin Gregson lost in the line of duty. Kevin Gregson swore to execute the duties of the RCMP without fear or favor. Instead, he spent most of his career at war with the Mounties. This is where it starts to get interesting. The Citizen's Chris Cobb considers how the promising constable got trapped in disciplinary limbo, marginalized from the force, too stubborn to quit, and on a downward spiral in the days before he was charged with first-degree murder in the death of an Ottawa police officer. So here we have him, 2005. This is while he's in South Africa. Kevin Gregson had been a Mountie for a little more than a year when he was called out on frigid night, February 2000, to investigate a shooting at Kisikikosi First Nation. Okay, destroyed that one too. It was the 33-year-old, I know certain people in there are going to look at that number, 33-year-old rookie's first placement. He was asked to work in a small detachment near the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border and the Cote Indian Reserve, where some of his extended birth family still lives. Despite his white middle-class upbringing in Ottawa, Gregson considered himself to be an urban native and retained an acute sense of his identity. When Gregson and his partner arrived on the scene, the suspect was caught in the high beams of his truck, then fired a shot. After instructing his partner to stay with the cruiser, Gregson headed towards the headlight without drawing his weapon. "I want you to kill me," the armed man screamed. "I want to die." After a long talk in the cold night, I like that though, you know, this guy, it's a mixed bag. That's why let's finish the story and we'll see. "I want you to kill me," the armed man said, screamed, "I want to die." After a long talk in the cold night, Gregson convinced the suspect to hand over his rifle. 4 months later, Gregson's bravery was recognized with a commanding officer's commendation. At the time, smart money was on Kevin Gregson to rise in the ranks. He was tall, fit, and personable with a sharp, if offbeat, sense of humor. He'd worked as an orderly at the Sault Ste. Marie Psychiatric Hospital, studied native addiction, and volunteered with the Sioux Police. Above all, the family man had worked hard to become an RCMP officer. Tough as it was in rural Saskatchewan, Gregson was living his dream. Now, after standing in harm's way to defuse crisis, he was bona fide hero. 10 years on, it's clear the smart money was wrong. There was nothing conventional about Gregson's RCMP career. Instead of managing up to superiors, he preferred to get in their faces. He was brutally honest, no matter the consequences. He loved police work, but disliked the paramilitary culture within the force. He was a man with a keen sense of right and wrong, but ran afoul so often that he set disciplinary precedents within the RCMP. So instead of climbing high, the young man who had shown such early promise began a slow and miserable descent that hit bottom in the days before he was charged with first-degree murder in the stabbing death of Ottawa Police Constable Eric Zepnik on December 29th, 2009. Months of research based on thousands of pages of court documents and disciplinary hearings reveal that Constable Kevin Gregson got caught up in a bizarre, self-perpetuating melodrama. Raised to stick up for himself, he could be sarcastic, insubordinate, and above all, undiplomatic. And yet, he wasn't always in the wrong. For at least 5 years, Gregson remained on the payroll as he was disciplined, suspended, and demeaned. He remained on the payroll. Okay, so he's suspended with pay for 5 years. Under the RCMP Act, the Mounties cannot force an emotionally troubled member into treatment. That doesn't sound so good. However, they can stop the pay that officer at any time. The RCMP could have threatened Gregson with dismissal in a bid to force him into treatment. The citizens' investigation suggests they did neither. Ooh, not looking so good. Dozens of hours of interviews with RCMP insiders and Gregson's acquaintances attest to that the glacial workings of the federal police force's disciplinary system trap suspended officers in limbo, often for years. Right now across Canada, there are 47 members with rank and salary, but without work. This is, I don't remember what year this is. I think this is 2015? 12, pardon me. So this is 8 years ago. We can only assume that there's going to be more people than 47 officers at this time who are sitting around just getting free paychecks. Interesting you say that, DC. Interesting you say that. When I was in, they didn't discipline you out. They forced you out by making your life miserable. Well, that sounds like a good boss, says one veteran Mountie familiar with Gregson. That remains part of the culture. That's why that's what they were trying to do. Fallout and charges after a routine assignment. 6 months after Gregson was cited for bravery, he and his partner Sean Porter were dispatched to a reserve near Cumberland House. It was January 27, 2001. After downing a dozen beers, Philip Crane had arrived at his mother's place drunk and combative. When his sister called the police, the 20-year-old Crane drove his fist through a living room wall, then lowered his 6'1" frame onto a couch, lit a cigarette, and waited. Oh, that sounds good. A cigarette. I'm going to have one. Gregson. Thanks, Philip. Reminding me to have a cigarette. Gregson had joined the 5-member detachment, 5 members, in Cumberland House in September 2000. Porter had 10 years on the force, including 2 in the northern Saskatchewan community. As Porter later described the scene, Crane swore at the officers from his spot on the couch. Gregson grabbed the man, threw him on the floor, busted his lip before slapping handcuffs and driving him to the drunk tank. The next morning, Crane woke up with some minor bumps and bruises, and at Gregson's request was released without charge. So he let him go. The man woke up. He's like, I'm sober now. Can you please let me go? And he said, sure, you're not drunk anymore. It was a routine call, typical of the nightly grind, but it would prove far from ordinary for Gregson. At the instigation of his senior officer, he was charged with 2 counts of assaulting Crane. Okay, at the instigation of his senior officer. So this is not Crane that wanted to charge him. 8 weeks, 2 days without cigarettes. That's awesome. That's awesome. I celebrate that. I'm not there yet. So the RCMP were pushing Mr. Crane to charge Mr. Gregson. During the trial, why would you do that? I'm not sure. During the trial, Gregson's lawyer accused Sean Porter of initiating the charges. Neither Crane nor his family ever complained. Never complained. You know? He got drunk. He was being a fool. The guy threw him on the ground. He broke his lip open. He had some bruises and bumps, and he let him go the next day. He didn't even charge him. No, that's not good enough. Infighting plagued, now we go. Infighting plagued the Cumberland House detachment long before Gregson arrived. He once described the atmosphere there as malicious and being like a living hell. Sound like DC? His relationship with Porter was so poisoned that the partners traveled to the same calls in separate vehicles. During the trial, prosecutor Matthew Meisga asked Gregson why he'd arrested Crane if he had no plans to charge the man. I didn't feel like it, Gregson said. He said he was going to assault me, so I arrested him. That gave me my grounds to put my hands on him. Most people we don't charge. We just lock them up, they sober up, they go home. Asked again why there were no charges, Gregson replied, I don't like the paperwork. Well, at least he's honest, you know. This guy's honest. And you plan to make a career in the RCMP, the prosecutor challenged? I have a career in the RCMP. I have a career in the RCMP, Gregson replied. I don't charge people who hit me. Interesting. People who are drunk are drunk. They resist because they're drunk. Philip is a nice guy when he's not drunk. It certainly doesn't sound like a lot of RCMP officers on native reserves that I've heard. When the judge dismissed the charges against Gregson, he made a point of noting that the constable had been honest, despite the fact that he often reflected poorly on his character. God love honest people. Honesty is the way. Truth will set you free. Gregson won the day, but at a price. $16,000 in legal fees and his first black mark within the RCMP. Wow, that's pretty painful. It followed me, he said. He would later say, in this outfit, if you get in trouble, even if you're acquitted, the taint is still there. Odd calls, strange advice, and abusive emails. Gregson's personal life had started to unravel in the summer of 2004 when he landed in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. His fourth posting, Humboldt. Why is it doing that? Not long after arriving, Gregson made an emergency call to a private line at his detachment. He'd been arguing with his wife, Julie, and feared for her safety and that of their two daughters. When the two officers arrived, Gregson handed over his service revolver. Then, fueled by Coca-Cola drinks, he drove 2 sleepless days to Ottawa to visit briefly with his support system, his parents, Reed and Faye Ann. Gregson's family have refused to speak publicly. When he returned home to Humboldt, Greg discovered emails that suggested that his wife was having an affair. During another blazing row, he again called the detachment to safeguard his family. It was the responsible thing to do, he thought. I agree with it. You know? I don't know. When I read this, I was like, that guy is really, he could get himself in a shit pile of stuff here, doing that, obviously, on himself. But he did the right thing. However, his superiors considered his behavior a symptom of something more serious. Obviously, he needed to work on his family, but there was another red flag early that fall. His wife could maybe not be having an affair. That would probably help. Gregson had been dispatched to address a, quote, drive without impairment class, a course for individuals convicted of driving over the limit. He arrived in full RCMP uniform, unclear of his assignment, but ready to yank some chains. Gregson confided in the instructor, Glenn Hepp, that he didn't really believe in the course. But, he said, since he was getting paid to be there, he'd oblige. Quote, he talked about working in the psych ward, Hepp said, when later asked to describe the presentation, that he didn't mind getting physical with the patients because nobody would listen if they complained. That doesn't sound so good. Gregson then advised the course participants to be smarter about drinking and driving to avoid getting caught. As his audience listened in disbelief, Gregson then confided that an unwritten code in the RCMP ranks means that if one member is stopped by another for impaired driving, he or she is taken home and the matter is dropped. Interesting. Well, of course, we all kind of have those suspicions, right? But to be able to confirm this in front of a drunk driving class, I mean, wow, okay. When the news of the performance reached the detachment superior, Rhonda Harlows, she reprimanded Gregson. He later admitted that he'd been out of line. Harlows had arrived in Humboldt 3 months earlier. Soon after, Gregson turned up at her doorstep. It was apparent he was very agitated, she said, of the visit. I invited him in. He wanted to talk about some of his previous bosses and how they'd stick together and didn't look after the bottom feeders. I'm assuming the constables. See, again, this business about how the top seems to be the rotting core of this apple. I invited him in. On another session, Gregson landed in trouble after responding to an email shared between officers in the Cumberland House. The message, which apparently mentioned Gregson in unflattering terms, had presumably been routed to him in error. Who knows what it said? Something pretty nice, right? Those internal emails talking trash about other people. Infuriated by its contents, he dropped several obscenities into a mass email and fired it off to every officer in the province. In another black mark. As punishment, Harlows ordered Gregson to review force policy on office computer use. Gregson was not about to get any sympathy. His fellow officers blamed him for the loss of the unofficial mess. Unofficial mess. A stocked bar, once common in RCMP detachments. I was unaware that they got a free booze, all you can drink at RCMP detachments. Did you know about that? Maybe I'm just the only one who didn't know that. In the old days, I could assume that, but like, up north or something. Not in present day. He'd mentioned its existence to a superior. So he complained and said, listen, this is a bit, probably we shouldn't have that. Oh, they take it away. For that, he'd become known as the Humboldt Rat. Unlike many officers who ease their stress with booze, Gregson was a teetotaler. He quit drinking while still at Marville High School after watching The Deer Hunter, a dark movie about Vietnam War. Coca-Cola was his drink of choice. Anxious to escape Saskatchewan, Gregson applied to the RCMP Air Marshal program. When he was rejected at the end of 2004 because of his disciplinary record, Gregson flipped an email to the commanding officer. Fuck me, he wrote. I guess I'm fucked. He added that he'd handle things his own way. The email was the last straw. Suspended with pay. Booze, yeah, they're probably boozing up at the free boozerama at the detachment and then driving home. Oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. We'll take you home. Make sure you get some more of that Johnny Walker Blue. Suspended with pay and country music TV. After meeting with his colleagues to discuss Gregson's mental health, I don't know if he's completely mental here. He reported booze. He let a man go. Didn't beat him up. He didn't draw a gun on a man who was armed and pointing at him. I don't know. Harlos he called himself twice on himself. Said, you know what? I'm getting a bit testy here. Can you come and get my guns and stuff and dissipate this? That's obviously pretty honest. I don't know. This guy is a mixed bag. After meeting with his colleagues to discuss Gregson's mental health, Harlos decided to go for his guns. In early January 2005, she and 6 other officers arrived at Gregson's apartment to confiscate 2 shotguns and 2 rifles. They also took a bow and 9 arrows. He became very angry, she said, swearing and yelling. He'd never used a weapon in a bad way at all, ever. He wasn't a drinker. Anyway, you guys can let me know, and hopefully in the comments below I'll hear some. I'd like to know what you guys think, because it seems like this guy really got pushed. Gregson was presented with 3-page suspension notice and ordered to see a physician or a psychologist. An RCMP appointed psychologist concluded that Gregson was suffering from stress due to his environmental factors. Quote, even though future testing following a period of treatment may show improvement, the risk of relapse would likely be moderate to high. Well, that's because he has a shitty work environment. The doctor wrote, should Constable Gregson display no future inappropriate behaviors or attitude, this office would be open to reviewing Gregson's fitness for operational duty after a period of approximately 5 years. Whoa. The report effectively guaranteed suspended officer a job, at least a paycheck for the next 5 years. I can't be fired, Gregson would explain to some with confidence, or with some confidence. They're protecting me. Although the psychologist visited future treatment was warranted, she made no specific recommendations, nor did she develop a patient relationship with Gregson. She just suspended him. For the next 8 months, the suspended officer was left to his own devices. He ferried his daughters back and forth to school and joked that he was on CMT duty, as in country music television. I sat on my butt all these months, he would say of his exile. No one came by. No one even talked to me. What he's meaning is no one from the RCMP ever said a word to him. He stewed in his own frustration before deciding, more out of principle than desire, that he wanted his weapons back. In the end of October 2005, Gregson decided to fight the seizure. During a hearing on the matter, Gregson's lawyer argued the RCMP's lack of worry over the constable's medical condition proved he posed no danger. Quote, it would seem that there isn't a huge concern that he is something that they need to worry about, that they need to do something about, because they haven't had him attend any regular scheduled counseling or treatment. The judge agreed. The RCMP were ordered to return Gregson's weapon. For the second time in court, Gregson had prevailed over the force. That's not a good one. From door kicker to desk jockey, in February 2006, his marriage finally over, Gregson transferred to RCMP's Regina headquarters, where he'd enlisted in the gradual return to work program. His reintegration was doomed from the start. He was assigned to the telecommunications department, where he was to spend nearly 4 hours every day, but he barely lasted one. Gregson was a self-described door kicker. Now they wanted him to become a desk jockey. Quote, I visited him around 9 o'clock, and he was very, very upset. Very, very upset. Recalled his new boss, Inspector Brenda Lucky. Does that name seem familiar? Quote, he didn't like that environment, didn't feel that he had anything in common with the people. Minutes later, he reappeared in Lucky's office, where he threw down his badge and ID. Rather than allowing him to quit, the sympathetic Lucky sent him for 2 weeks stress leave. I didn't feel it was a good time for him to resign, she would explain. He was pretty emotional. The two later met at a local restaurant where Gregson talked about the 6-week bodyguard course he'd been on in South Africa. He'd explained that while were he to be fired, he hoped to work in Iraq or Afghanistan. He then pulled out an 8-inch knife and told Lucky he'd been trained to use it. So those of you who don't know, Brenda Lucky is the head of the RCMP now, right? The commissioner. Commissioner Lucky. The one who's really awfully silent about all of the Nova Scotia stuff. I think she's only made 2 statements on the entire thing. It's like that other lady. The microphone over here. Brandon. Okay. Interesting that she's in this article. 2 weeks later, okay, neither Gregson nor apparently his new bosses in Regina were aware that officers back in Humboldt had launched an investigation into him in September 2006 for allegedly abusing his estranged wife, Julie, and for pointing a weapon at her mother. This is getting interesting right here. They went out and started an investigation against him for allegedly abusing his wife and for pointing a weapon at mother. Gregson and Julie had been together since his days in the Sioux. The allegations emerged in June 2006 during a casual conversation between Julie and the wife of another officer who told the RCMP that Gregson had been abusive. That's called hearsay. Nobody reported it. By this time, separated from Gregson, Julie refused to cooperate with the investigation. It continued regardless. They're like, no. This is his ex-wife. Do you think she'd probably want to, give him the stiffy? No. It was the people in Humboldt, the RCMP, who did. They just went out, heard something from some lady supposedly, and are like, oh, you know what? We're going to start an investigation into this guy. He must have been beating her up. I guess he was pointing weapons at the mom. Hurt. After his 2-week leave, Gregson returned to work and applied himself to several small projects. At times, he found himself disorientated, forgetful, even confused. In April 7th, 2006, he drove himself to the hospital where he collapsed. Doctors told him he might have died had he not reached treatment. During surgery, less than 2 days later, a shunt was inserted to relieve the hydrocephalus, a potentially fatal condition known as water on the brain. Gregson would speculate it was caused by headbuttings he'd received during his police work in Saskatchewan. It was a theory as valid as any. Medical science had yet to figure out the cause of hydrocephalus. Other than superficial, contradictory assessments shortly after his operation, there was never any consensus on how the condition of the operation might have influenced Gregson's mental state. Quote, the doctor and neurosurgeon said they can't figure it out, said Gregson. I should be dead. Anybody with a quarter of my condition would be wearing diapers and laying in a bed or dead. So I'm a freak. People make jokes about me and they say, hell can't handle me and heaven doesn't want me. Gregson's supervisors visited him in the hospital. His commander, Darryl McFadden, took him cookies and fruit. Oh, gosh. You don't want to be doing this cookies and fruit. This cookie stuff, Don't be taking people cookies. We'll learn that in this story. No, it's not a good idea. 3 weeks after the life-saving treatment, the hospital called the police to report Gregson missing. He discharged himself from the hospital and fled to Ottawa. I messed up. No one knows how messed up I am. Gregson spent a month recuperating at his parents' home. Not long after returning to Regina, Gregson showed up unannounced at the office of Mormon Bishop Rob Howie. It was May 14th, 2006, according to the court transcripts from his sentencing. Gregson, a Mormon, wanted his status within the church to be reinstated. He'd lost his recommends because he had been having sexual relationships before his divorce. Towering over the bishop, the Mountie slapped the knife on the desk, his knife. "You don't know how many ways I've been taught to kill a man," he said. Afraid for his life, Howie, 28, attempted to calm Gregson. Excuse me. Almost as quickly, the constable collapsed in self-pity. "I'm messed up," he confided. "No one knows how messed up I am." Howie was traumatized and conflicted. Although the reclusive Gregson had little interest in fellow church members, the bishop liked his company. He found him charming and disarmingly funny. It took Howie 2 weeks to press charges. After weighing his options, he decided Gregson needed help. It was glaringly obvious the officer had no place in the RCMP or on any police force. Gregson was charged with 4 assault and weapons-related offenses. Domestic assault allegations against him had ground to a halt because why? His estranged wife refused to cooperate. Sounds like she got beat up. You know, she's totally out of the picture. Yeah. Humboldt, was that Humboldt, that the guys there that wanted to charge him? Or whatever, Cumberland or whatever. A bargain, a guilty plea, and an unannounced visit. In September 2006, Regina police contacted the RCMP to say they intended to charge Gregson in the Howie incident. What's more, they wanted to arrest the Mountie in uniform. As is often the case when police arrest high-profile suspect or make an arrest that makes them look good, they plan to alert the media. Inspector Lucky resisted. She was well aware that Gregson would not react well to the humiliation. Quote, "I gave him the option of going to change, and then I would take him down myself," she said. "I was told he was going to get charged, but get released." Gregson was very upset. He told me I'd betrayed him. Moments after his release, Gregson was served with a suspension that barred him from RCMP building. Just before the Howie trial, so he's getting barred now too. Why? I'm not exactly sure why he's getting barred. I guess just because he's being suspended? Okay, I can understand that, but it will play a role, I suppose. Just before the Howie trial was to begin, a senior RCMP contacted the bishop to advise that he was key to a conviction. When the bishop expressed a reluctance to testify, the Mounties made a compelling case. Gregson was a bad apple, they argued. We want him off the force. You want him off the force. The bishop agreed to testify on one condition. Get this man some counseling, he urged. Keep watch over him because he is capable of doing far worse than what he did to me. In the end, there was no trial. Instead, Gregson pleaded guilty to threatening the bishop and other charges were dropped. The RCMP didn't or couldn't keep their side of the bargain. Although the Mounties suspended Gregson on several occasions, they never persuaded or ordered him into sustained counseling for his anger issues and emotional fragility. Hey, Don. So, almost 4 years later, on December 29th, 2009, Howie was devastated to find out that Gregson had been charged with first-degree murder. The death of Constable Zapnik made no sense, but neither did the fact that Gregson was still an RCMP officer. Although Howie had the impression the RCMP wanted to shed their troubled officer, Documents suggest Gregson pled guilty on the understanding that he would work his way back to active service. I made a deal, Gregson explained. I pled guilty for scaring a guy. I never threatened him. I went to him for help. Because I presented a blade to him, any normal, reasonable person would be frightened by that. He was frightened. I pled to that. But I didn't go there to intimidate or scare him. I'm not the boogeyman. I'm not frightening. He's a little guy. He's a boy. I've always owned up to what I'm doing. I should have been paying to have Seamus read. Huh? I don't think you're talking to me. I don't read. Okay. After pleading guilty, Gregson was confident he'd be called back to work. When his suspension continued, Gregson appealed. He was ordered to report daily to the commissionaire's desk. He showed up on September 28th, 2006, and stuck to the rules for a year. In May 2007, Gregson's future wife, Nicole, they married in October 2008, gave birth to his third child, a son. The joy was short-lived. In July, Lucky served Gregson with more papers informing him that his suspension would be continued as he was being investigated for unspecified domestic and firearms offenses. This is going back to the ex-wife. A sympathetic colleague told Gregson what was being said about him at the office. He said, "Everyone's afraid of you, that the force was large enough to wait me out. They went to everybody I knew and said, Constable Gregson is beating his wife and pointing his guns at people. Everyone was like, no. So I sat and I waited and no one came to me." This is unbelievable. By this point, Gregson was refusing to speak to his supervisor. Do you blame them? Do you really blame this guy? I mean, I'm so conflicted. I don't know. By this point, Gregson was refusing to speak to his supervisor. He instructed the RCMP to communicate through his lawyer. On September 5th, Gregson's lawyer learned that his client was about to be charged with domestic assault. Gregson, who first heard about the domestic abuse probe through friends inside the RCMP, was convinced he was being denied basic justice. For starters, he had yet to be questioned about the assault allegations. He was anxious to share key evidence. Press clippings from the Sioux Star newspaper, March 97, in which Julie, then unmarried 23-year-old psychology student, was charged with mischief for concocting a story that she'd been sexually assaulted by a knife-wielding assailant. Gregson was also eager to show his service plaque from Cumberland House because the dates on it proved that he wasn't in the same town where the assault on his mother-in-law was alleged to have happened. Ugh. Fed up and frustrated, Gregson emailed his commanding officer, Assistant Commissioner Daryl McFadden. Although it's unusual for officers at the top and the bottom end, the RCMP hierarchy, to know each other, McFadden had encountered Gregson on numerous occasions. They crossed paths at the F Division gym and chatted informally in the corridors of the Regina headquarters. Gregson had actually sent his commander a number of emails. On September, so he had the good communication open with him. On September 29th, he sent another, quote, "I know you don't like getting emails from me, but this is getting crazy," he wrote. "Aren't we supposed to be innocent or something until we're proven guilty?" When he didn't receive a reply, Gregson showed up at McFadden's house the next day before 8 a.m. The supervisor had already left for work. Gregson would explain that he presumed the visit was no big deal in the Mounties, especially in smaller detachments, which this is true. In smaller detachments, they're encouraged to talk to their supervisors like that. The spouses of officers often take phone calls or messages. Later that day, McFadden sent Gregson an email. Kevin, my wife has passed on your message from your visit earlier today. I'm arranging for someone to contact you, and you should get a phone call on that fairly soon. Don't go to my residence again. McFadden then signed the addendum to Gregson's suspension, ordering him to stay away from the homes of other officers unless invited. Nagging at McFadden was the lack of clarity about the effect of Gregson's brain condition on the constable's behavior. Quote, did that play a role in his behavior? We do not have a definitive answer from the medical community about that. I don't know. This sounds like a bit of a fluid situation for the RCMP. Fluid for McFadden, maybe. Gregson remained suspended and under investigation for domestic abuse allegations, and he was convinced he could disprove. His hopes of returning work were dashed. The RCMP was dangling the offer of a medical discharge with a pension and a reference. Gregson wasn't interested. He wanted to be an operational cop. In his mind, he was battling individuals within the RCMP, not the force itself. Gregson would tell a disciplinary panel that he went to McFadden's home in a bid to get noticed. My purpose was to force them to take a statement from me because I knew I was going to get charged. I was kind of scared, but I did it anyway. I couldn't think of anything else to do, so I did it. They cut me out. They isolated me. They were trying to break me by just isolating me. The Mounties put a tail on Gregson, though they were certainly not discreet about it. At one point, he noticed officers on his tail at a movie theater where he'd gone to see the Simpsons movie. I know the guys. I was at headquarters all the time. I would always see them. Despite having no witnesses, no cooperation from the alleged victim, and no statement from the alleged perpetrator, the RCMP sent the file containing the allegations of Gregson's spousal assault down to Regina Crown Attorney's office. The RCMP wanted approval to charge and arrest Gregson. Let's read that again. Despite having no witnesses, no cooperation from the alleged victim, and no statement from the alleged perpetrator, the RCMP sent the file containing the allegations of Gregson's spousal assault to the Regina Crown Attorney's office. The RCMP wanted approval to charge and arrest Gregson. Does this sound familiar? They just keep trying to charge this guy, take his weapons, unbelievable. And what has he really done here? I think he reported the mess. He didn't charge somebody. They tried to get the guy who he didn't charge to charge him. And he didn't want to. Crown lawyers returned the file, citing lack of evidence. They refused to proceed with the case, although it was another victory. Now this is the third one. He's taken on the RCMP. He's third time. Although it was another victory for Gregson, he was under increased RCMP surveillance. He realized he'd become a pariah and was concerned that any misunderstanding might trigger an officially sanctioned action. He worried that if the police decided to raid his house, his family would become collateral damage. An expert shot, Gregson had little faith in his fellow Mounties. Quote, I've seen the recruits coming out of the training depot, he would say. They can't hit the broadside of a barn. Sound familiar? Can't, how about this? We could revise this. Can't hit the broadside of a fire hall. Over and over, he imagined the situation from the RCMP's point of view. I could articulate popping me. You people trained me. Popping me. He could see them shooting him. You people trained me. You created me. You took a large male with somewhat of an anger management problem. Pretty fucking honest, I'm seeing here. Pretty fucking honest. And you put me through 5 years of this stuff. I'm surprised he doesn't have more foul language. I think that's probably why I'm not hearing back from Mr. Palango. Not sure about that, but I do have a bit of a spicy mouth. What was it? Peppery mouth? Somebody described it. Peppery. Down on the Rick Howe. That Seamus guy, here's a peppery mouth. Without seeking permission, the suspended Mountie moved Nicole and their baby son to Ottawa, where they settled in a townhouse in the West End. His daughters remained in Saskatchewan with their mother. Gregson's career was in tatters. He'd been suspended and ostracized. His only salvation was that he remained on the payroll. Like, this is his last hope. He's on the payroll. He's like, what the fuck, man? He was weary of the battle, but is increasingly desperate to tell his story. Never one for formality. Gregson decided to roll the dice. Got balls. On March 17, 2008, he showed up with his mother and a plate of fresh-baked cookies at the home of RCMP Commissioner William Elliott. Wow. Talk about going straight to the top. He went right to the top. But he brought cookies. That's pretty disarming. Cookies with mom. Did his mom come? I think his mom came. Yeah, she came. Pretty scary individual. You got your mom with you and cookies. The commissioner's university-age son was fresh out of the shower when he opened the door wearing only a bath towel. The young man accepted the cookies and promised to hand over the documents to his father. Elliott responded in writing to Gregson, including a note of thanks to Mrs. Gregson for the baked cookies. Thanks for the cookies. Really appreciated the cookies. Oh, what happens next? Then the force slapped Gregson with another suspension for violating the previous sanction he'd received for visiting the home of his supervisor in Regina. The life of Riley, the end of a career. With the gears of the RCMP discipline grinding in slow motion, Gregson's sanctions and appeals began to collide. 4 months after visiting the Elliott house, Gregson faced a 3-person disciplinary panel over the Howie affair and was accused of conducting himself in a disgraceful manner that brings discredit to the force. Now, first of all, he's been convicted. He pled guilty to a criminal offense, and yet he's still an RCMP officer. Though, actually, funnily enough, I still am not settled on this, but I actually really feel for this guy. At least up until now. For sure I do. And it just seems like they want to get him. Absolutely. Hello, Karen. How's it going? The RCMP appointed Larry McGonigal to represent the constable. To represent the constable. The defense lawyer argued that mitigating circumstances, especially his client's debilitating medical condition and his admission of guilt, this guy never is shied from his responsibility. Every time he's done something wrong, he stood up and accepted it. He is really honest, this guy. Take my guns. I'm worried I'm getting in a fight with my wife. Please, how do you handle this? Twice. The RCMP drinking and driving. I'm going to tell you the truth about that. Justified a minor reprimand. RCMP lawyer Jonathan Hart countered that there was no proof of the brain cysts were to blame. What? I think if you've got cysts on your brain, I don't think your brain probably is working quite well anymore. It's not operating 100%. 100%? Just figuring, could just be me. He noted the constable had never shown any remorse. What? He'd apologize, accept responsibility. How about the force accepting remorse down Nova Scotia? They don't do that. No. They don't know remorse. Quote, these incidents show Constable Gregson to be a spoiled, arrogant child who is only concerned with his own goals, he said. He cannot handle being told no. And when that happens, he loses his temper. The RCMP panel decided there was little chance Gregson could be rehabilitated. He was ordered to resign within 14 days or face dismissal. He was reminded of his right to appeal. Gregson was appealing one suspension, with the internal hearing about the second started in November 2009 at the Federal Court of Canada. A panel of senior RCMP officers had been convened to determine if Gregson had contravened regulations by failing to report daily to the commissioner in Regina, which he did for a year, every day. Every day he did. Nobody came and saw him. Nobody said anything to him. Nothing. His doctor didn't care. His psychologist didn't have any kind of treatment plan. They just sent him home. Here's a paycheck for 5 years, and we'll talk to you later. And the guy really wants to work. My Lord. So they're just going to have another one. Let's get some more shit on this guy. Try and charge him with assault. Try and charge him with pointing weapons. My God, it's just everywhere. They also had to decide if he'd sinned about visiting Elliott's home. For Gregson, at last, it was a chance to be heard. During the hearing, Gregson's lawyer, Larry McGonigal, argued that the Mounties had contravened the constable's constitutional rights. Gregson told the panel what had motivated his cookie delivery. I wanted him to know what was going on with me. That was about all. And my mom came to bring cookies so people wouldn't be afraid of me and wouldn't be intimidated. That's all. Despite the fallout, Gregson admitted that he'd been delighted to receive a written response from the top Mountie. On the stand, Gregson was occasionally flippant and decidedly undiplomatic, especially during cross-examination. How would you be? Asked why he went to the Elliots, Gregson explained, I've just been walking around with my thumb up my butt. Like my civilian friends can't believe I've survived this long. No, I just know what I'm doing. Asked to elaborate, Gregson explained that despite his suspensions, he was still on the payroll. Quote, I'm still sitting here, and I'm a member. It doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Yeah, the gravy train continues on. Gregson was asked to repeat himself. The gravy train continues on, he said. The life of Riley. Gregson was asked if he had any respect for Elliott or for the legal proceedings. Quote, I actually respect you, Gregson replied. I just like to push your buttons because it amuses me. He was asked if he respected the RCMP. Yes, I do. Do you wish to be a member of the RCMP? I am a member and I'll stay a member, Gregson responded. Balls. If you guys were serious about getting rid of me, you would have sought my dismissal, but you don't have it. That's why you keep playing these games and you're trying to force me out. You're trying to get me to quit, but I'm too stubborn to quit. I'm brain damaged. I'm not stupid, and I'm not crazy. Ooh. The RCMP lawyer confronted Gregson. Is this a game to you? Seriously, if somebody, after all of that, all of this, you've had my ex-wife, my ex-wife's mom, you've tried to get somebody to charge me who I let go, you've all kinds of reprimands every which way from Sunday. Who's playing the game here? Who's playing games? RCMP lawyer confronted Gregson. Is this a game to you? Quote, it's not a game, Gregson replied. It's called living. My dad has raised me to stick up for yourself. You fight. You don't let people, institutions, push you around. Can't we all just learn this lesson here from this man? Right here, that line. If there's a takeaway from any of this, it's that line. Don't let institutions push you around like the RCMP. You want to throw out tacit? Sorry about that. You want to throw around tacit threats? You threaten victims, okay. You threaten me. I'm really fucking pissed about that. Man, let's do something about it. Do it legally. Come on. Let's see. Let's see if you can put your money where your mouth is. Because I frankly don't think you can. You know what's going to happen if you do. You know that I know the legal system. Yet you push around families. You're pretty tough behind your guns and your bulletproof vests and your fucking fancy bullshit. Not real tough when somebody wants to stand up to you. This guy stood up for himself. He beat him 3 times. 3 times. And he's still fighting. So you blame the institution? No, I blame individuals who are making the bad decisions. Who is it? Somebody saying I have dirty hair. Who's saying that? Who's saying I have dirty hair? Somebody saying I have dirty hair? It's product, man. Yeah. Is this dog? Do we have dog back? Is that dog's only thing? He can attack my hair? Oh. The RCMP are attacking my hair. Oh, what am I going to do? If that's all you can do, sir, I suspect you should go back to school, finish grade 12, and then go into university, if you can make it. Then you can come and talk to me. I don't like to talk to people who can only attack hair. Get real. Okay. The RCMP had to decide if barring Gregson from the homes of his supervisors was in contravention to the RCMP Code of Conduct. This never happened before. Nobody seemed to know, mostly because, as with much of his behavior, Gregson was setting a precedent. Gregson lawyer argued that the addendums to the suspensions were invalid. He then launched into a blistering attack over the way Gregson's superiors had handled the allegations of spousal assault. It was, he said, quote, an abuse of process and an abuse of authority. That actually is very much true. Legally, what they were doing to him was an abuse of process. Can't charge an institution, sadly. He attributed Gregson's irreverent attitude about 2 years of pent-up frustration. McGonigal suggested Gregson had been told clearly that if he pleaded guilty to the Howie case, he'd receive a conditional discharge with mitigating medical impairment, and then he could return to work. Unbeknownst to Constable Gregson, management had other ideas. Oh, so that's called lying. Lying? I heard Christina said that your hair is dirty. Oh. Is Christina, are you RCMP? Sorry? I feel terribly bad. Oh, I'm attacked. You know, I'm going to lose sleep. I'm not the one that has problems. I don't work for a gross organization like this. Because if I were working for this organization, I would be doing something like reporting it, doing my duty, which I swore to. Where is that? Do I still have that here? I can show Christina. That was Christina. Where's that? Your code of conduct. Where's that? Oh, this is not being friendly now for some reason. Oh, there we go. Oh, here's something interesting, just on a side note. I shouldn't stop the story. When I did a search for push bar and Nova Scotia, I never used to get any results. Push bar, Nova Scotia, RCMP cruiser, Nova Scotia, anything, trying to find the push bar. Oh, no, don't worry about that. That's been fixed. They've got this now. I think it's result number 6. It's just kind of right there, right in front of you. RCMP say, and it's of course to do with the shooting. Funny that. Anyways, let's see what else we've got here. Look at my greasy hair, Christina. Oh no. Let's see if we can find your code. I've got it here somewhere. Would this be it? I think this might be it. Oh, balls, it's not it. I just wish I could drive my computer. There's too much garbage on it. It's really, really sad. I think this would be it. Here we go. Perjury. Perjury is an offense. Contravenes RCMP code. Conduct. Lying under oath. That's not so good. Failing to report or address the conduct of another member. A member has an obligation to report a contravention of the code of conduct and take appropriate measures to stop or prevent the continuation of a contravention whenever possible. While the RCMP has a few cases, failure to report Quebec's Comité de... Oh, God, I'm not good with my French. De Tonge Policier has adopted the practice of systematically disciplining witness officers who fail to report their partner's misconduct or who fail to prevent the commission of a contravention. Did you know that, Christina? Did you know that, dog? Kind of have to do that. That's your job. Anyways, moving along. He'd received a conditional discharge mitigating medical impairment that he could return to work. Unbeknownst to Constable GRERGSON, the management had other ideas. McGonigal told the disciplinary panel, I don't think that management, when they are making decisions with respect to Kevin GRERGSON, afforded him the fairness that was required. That's because they weren't listening to his side of the story. They made no effort to talk to him. The board acknowledged that GRERGSON had been suffering from stress. Wonder who caused that stress? Marital discord and serious medical condition. Apparently, though, the RCMP didn't think so. Even still, they questioned his ability to be rehabilitated. Clearly, Constable GRERGSON acknowledged his actions, but claimed that he was the one who would decide what was lawful and unlawful and act accordingly. The board chairman, John Reed, this flippant attitude was demonstrated on the stand, and while the board is not sanctioning the member for his attitude, it goes to the character of the person when they fail to accept responsibility for their actions. Well, I thought he acknowledged his actions, and now he fails to accept them. You know that parents, children are a reflection of parents, right? You could kind of look as the RCMP as the parent. Members of the RCMP are children in an analogous way, right? If the children see parents doing bad things, lying, deceiving, not acknowledging and taking responsibility for their actions, how does a child act? How would a child act if they repeatedly saw these kinds of things? Nova Scotia, Quebec, Marathon, the Picton stuff. How many examples do you need? Quebec City, setting a really bad example for your own members. The board chairman, okay, goes to the character of person when they fail to accept responsibility for their actions. They would be wise to heed their own words. Reed rejected the idea that stress was to blame for Gregson's actions. Rather, he said, it was an illustration of the fact that he does not have the character that it takes to perform the duties of a police officer. Really? You quit charging him, quit screwing him around, let him do his job, let him do the things that are right. Yeah, he's telling the truth. Oh, no, can't have that. Oh, he reported that booze. You know, we don't get any more free booze. Damn that guy. He's gotta go. We're gonna drive him into the ground. Gregson was ordered to resign from the force within 14 days or face dismissal. He had the right to appeal. Of course, the latest discipline was delivered with a hammer blow. The RCMP stopped Gregson's pay. At the time, Gregson was earning about $75,000 a year. In fact, the order to stop the salary had been made in July 2009 because the clerical error, he remained on salary. This man did want to work. He literally did want to do his job. And he was prevented from doing that. They just kept him sitting there. Would you be a bit stressed out if that were the case? Would it drive you a little out of your mind that nobody was listening to you and you constantly were getting barraged with, we're going to charge you over here, even though your ex-wife is like, no, we don't want to do that. Even though the mom lived in a different town, even though this man was like, no, I don't want to charge this guy. He's getting all kinds of emails. He's getting hated by his coworkers for being honest and doing the right thing. Would you be a bit stressed out after 5 years? $75,000 paycheck. Yeah. But he said, I want to go back to work. Can you please help me get back to work? No. You going to give him psychological services? No, not going to do anything. We're just going to let him sit there for $75,000 a year. It's rare for a Mountie to be suspended without pay. Gregson could and would appeal the dismissal. But all at once, the gravy train was out of steam. He was off the payroll and had no chance of getting back on. For the first time, Kevin Gregson was in a worse place than he had been since joining the Mounties. Despite 9 years of chronic and often public difficulty, he remained undiagnosed and untreated. A friend once asked Gregson why he'd stay with the organization when they clearly didn't want him. Because I want to be a police officer. That's tragic. Within a month before Christmas, he had 2 families to support and no income. His attempts to find work were going nowhere. The pressure was causing a major rift in his new family. Kevin Reed Gregson had traveled a long and troubled road from hero to zero. His career was over. The Mounties finally got their man. Their own man. You turn against this organization, you say one word, boom, they will hit you. But that's not the end of the story. There's a little more. frankly, I don't know if I believe that we're getting the whole truth on this stuff. I don't know. I just, given the RCMP's track record, and I'm looking at this, the more I'm looking at it, I don't know if this man got the shaft. I don't know, and I would like to hear what your guys' opinion is. Convicted killer Kevin Gregson guilty of sexual assault. The man convicted of killing Ottawa police officer Eric Zipnek was found guilty of sexual assault Wednesday morning and sentenced to 10 years in jail. Kevin Gregson already serving a life sentence. Already serving a life sentence, was found guilty of 4 counts of sexual assault and 4 counts of sexual interference with a young girl who was 10 years old at the time of the incident. That's very not good. The girl, now 13, spoke to Gregson directly before the verdict was read aloud and said her life was changed forever. Okay, I want you to hear what she says and see if that sounds like something. I have 13-year-old in my life, so I kind of know how they speak. See if this sounds like a 13-year-old. Fairly articulate 13-year-old, too. And was read aloud, said her life had changed forever. She was only able to get through the first sentence before breaking down into tears, and the statement was read by someone else. Quote, "I will give the chance for forgiveness if you just say sorry, Kevin," she said in the statement. "It doesn't have to be now, and it doesn't have to be directly to me. You can even say it to yourself, Kevin, but remember, I will forgive you." The court heard Gregson had raped the girl 4 times on different occasions in 2009. The incidents happened a week before Gregson had killed Constable Zapnik. She's an amazing girl, the Crown Attorney Brian Haloka. She's heroic in both disclosing this and coming to court and testifying and wanting to read her victim impact statement in his presence. Although additional years in jail cannot be added to the life sentence Gregson already serving, Haloka said it was an important for the trial to happen. Quote, "We felt it was in the public's interest that even though it was concurrent sentence that the victim should have her day in court." After the verdict was read aloud, Gregson told the court he did not kill Constable Zipnik and dreamt about all of it happening when he was 20 years old. That's a very odd thing to say. Gregson told the court he did not kill him. CTV's Ottawa Joanne Schnurr was in the court Wednesday morning and said Gregson showed no emotion during the girl's victim impact statement. Anna Krawatska, the widow of Constable Eric Zapnik, also was in the courtroom when the verdict was read. Gregson was convicted of first-degree murder in the stabbing death of Eric Zapnik in March. There was one final article. It doesn't look like I have archived it, which was strange the way it was written. I wonder if I can find it again. I thought I had it. Oh, yes, I do. Maybe. I do. The gun. The gun. Hopefully you can handle my greasy hair. Oh, they're doing this again. This is the Ottawa Citizen this time. Okay. Interesting. Let's go here. I know the greasy hair must affect my brain, my intellectual power, also my reading ability. Archive.is. Oh, get the fuck out of here. I saved this. Let me try it in a different search engine. You know, things are really off the rail when mind control makes the most sense. Okay. You guys got a real debate going here about China. I don't know necessarily that China is your real target. Organ harvesting. I'll leave it at that. Let's see if it'll work over here. This site can't be reached. Oh, this is really too bad. Eric Zepnek and the Night Day. I don't know if this is the same one. See, now I can open it. Interesting, but I can't open the full article. Is it going to open now? Okay, here we go. Okay. Eric Zipnik and Kevin Gregson, the night they met, Ottawa Citizen, 12th, March 13th, 2012. Ottawa, just before 6 o'clock, December 28th, Kevin Gregson sat down in front of a computer. Life is sometimes just runs you over, he typed. It doesn't matter how hard you try. Perhaps it was a signal of surrender to life's up and down. Gregson, 43, had experimented his fair share across 11-year RCMP career, nowhere near ordinary. Now his second wife was leaving him for good, with their 2 young boys in tow. The Mounties ordered him to quit or be fired. And though he'd been hired as a job consultant, the suspended officer had no offers of employment in the private security industry. So now, at 5:50 p.m., he turned to Facebook, and posted some souvenir photos. One photo featured a serious-looking Gregson in a combat helmet. Was taken 5 years earlier in the elite course in South Africa, bodyguard course. After updating his photos, he headed out in the cold. Later that night, he'd been found doubled up in 2 RCMP-issued bulletproof vests, armed with a pellet gun and a hunting knife. South to town, Constable Zepnik was showing up for duty a little after 8 p.m., almost an hour early for his shift, Ottawa Police Department's Leitrim Road Detachment. Just back from Christmas holidays, he wanted to use the time to catch up on emails. Zepnik only took 1 call on his final shift. At the same time that the constable was settling in the station, a young man walked into Metcalfe Library on 8th Line, across from the Larry Robinson Rink, 17 kilometers south of the police detachment. The library is just down the street from the park where years ago Lou Diamond Phillips filmed Carney, a TV movie which he played sheriff tracking escape monster. I don't know why this shit is in these papers. Like, why does that matter? I don't really frankly care. It was a small branch in the Ottawa Public Library. Its catalog boasts 502 picture books, again, who cares, including Dr. Seuss titles. On this night, the young man took a seat at the library computer. Before the library's 8:30 closing, he'd attacked the lone librarian. He beat her, tied her with telephone cords, forced himself on her, and then fled. After breaking free, the librarian scrambled across the arena to the arena where she called 911 932. It was less than an hour later, Constable Zepnik's shift. The call was dispatched to police who were en route to a second flat. It was not like 24 minutes, 25 minutes. By 9:50, the city's oldest rookie constable was in the office at the hockey arena taking details from the sexual assault victim. It was at this time that police say Kevin GRERGSON hit the darkened streets under blowing snow on Ottawa's west side. Police allege that GRERGSON, armed in and dressed in body armor, was on a planned mission driven by his latest tide of trouble. They say he wanted to draw out police and engage them in a deadly confrontation. They allege that GRERGSON, aggressive by his own admission, began by carjacking a Honda Civic in front of a Tim Hortons in the Green Bank Hunt Club Plaza, directly across the road from the Ottawa Police Department's West Division Station. The two teenagers had just left the coffee shop. They were seated in the Honda, caught up on conversation as they waited for the parked car to warm up. Suddenly, the driver's door opened and a man waved a gun in the 17-year-old's face. This is a carjacking. Get out of the car. The carjacker inexplicably offered his thanks to the teens when the teens complied. In the rush of events, the teen's passenger asked to grab her Lady Gaga CD. Does this sound like a little strange to you? Thanks. I'm taking your car and, oh, boy, no, please. Just, that's fine. You can take the car, but you know what? We want the Lady Gaga CD. This sounds like, I mean, I don't even know. It just sounds loony. The request was declined. I wonder how many times down in South Central Los Angeles or in Houston, you know, people are like, oh yeah, by the way, you can I have my Lady Gaga CD? Boom. The request was declined. The carjacker drove off behind the plaza. The teenagers ran into the Tim Hortons where the passenger called 911. Next, accordingly to police, GRERGSON drove the stolen car across the street to the police station where he parked in a police-only spot. When the police failed to appear, the driver simply drove off into the night. During the evening, police were called several times, mostly in the West End, about erratic motorists blowing red lights in a car matching the description of the stolen Honda. At some point after 10 p.m., police say GRERGSON drove to his parents' home on Mary Drive. There, according to sources, he spoke of suicide and his problems with the Mounties. At 11:02, the ambulance ferrying librarian to the Ottawa's Hospital General Campus was rerouted to Civic, where there is a crisis team trained to deal with sexual assault. 5 minutes later, Ontario Provincial Police captured a 15-year-old suspect outside city limits. They locked him up for the night in the detachment in Hawkesbury. The teenager was charged with sexual assault, forcible confinement, robbery, and breaching his probation. Oh, it sounds like a good one at 15. My Lord, raping. I would like to know who that is. I would like to know who that is. I have a feeling. Anyway, after seeing the case through, Constable Zepnik headed to the Civic to follow up. He had parked his cruiser just outside the sliding doors to the emergency room, which is where a colleague met him a few minutes later. Constable Reinhard Leitner arrived at the hospital around 4:20 a.m. to take photos of the librarian's injuries. He found Zepnik outside in his cruiser typing his report. They spoke for about 5 minutes, and then Leitner went inside. Zepnik was still typing when the Honda Civic, stolen Honda, pulled up in front of the Civic campus. The driver backed into the reserved spot beside a parked ambulance, directly facing Zepnik's cruiser. He may have left the Honda running. Either way, police allege that the 6'1", 210-pound GRERGSON drew out Zepnik, himself more than 6 feet tall, 235 pounds, into a surprise attack. Inside the Civic campus, paramedics Virginia Warner, Craig McKines, and Patricia St. Dennis, Amanda Wallowike, were filling out paperwork. Through the window, they spotted the men fighting. A police officer was down on the cold pavement. He'd been slashed in the throat. I think it's slashed on the throat, but anyway. Without thinking, the paramedics ran outside. One of the four grabbed the knife-waving assailant from behind and wrestled him into a headlock. Paramedics. Okay? Wrestling a RCMP cop. Okay? When the attacker moved to slash the rescuers, one of the female paramedics grabbed his knife-wielding arm and kicked him in the groin, sending him to the pavement. With the help of the colleague, she pinned the attacker while the other paramedic attended the constable. Although Eric Zepnik was only steps outside the emergency room, he might as well have been in the middle of nowhere. While two of the paramedics restrained the suspect, another ran to the ambulance to call the dispatcher and police. The fourth paramedic rushed inside the hospital. She asked the hospital security guards to help her carry the dying officer. When they refused to go out into the unfolding terror, well, those are good security guards. What are they doing? No, I'm not going outside. It's cold. Sorry about that. We'll just let that guy die. The paramedic dragged Zepnik into the emergency room and onto a gurney, all the while keeping pressure onto his neck wound. Thank you, the dying officer said. Those were his last words. This just sounds, it's too bizarre. It was only when Constable Leitner heard someone call a code that he knew something was going down. The voice was trembling, and you could tell it was pretty serious. A nurse came running, summoning Leitner, informing him that someone had been stabbed. Only when he entered the emergency room did anyone mention that an officer was down. There was blood everywhere. With Zepnik in doctor's care, the paramedic grabbed Zepnik handcuffs and ran outside. They cuffed the attacker's wrists and stuffed him into the police car. Seated in the back of the cruiser, the suspect mistook the paramedics for police. So you've got paramedics arresting him, security guards not. You don't know what you're doing, Lady Gaga CDs. You don't know what you're doing, he said. Before you put a suspect in a cruiser, you're supposed to search them. He motioned toward their holster. They grabbed his gun and threw it to the ground. Do you remember how they said that he wanted a gun? Do you remember that? It said in the Wikipedia article, it said in the other article, he only had a knife and he wanted a gun. But he had a gun. Anybody else see a problem with that? Maybe it's just bad reporting. At 4:37 a.m., a dispatcher updated the log. Officer Zepnik was stabbed in the neck. It's last entry, Constable Zepnik's final shift. So there you go. There is my 2 hour and 13-minute story about GRERGSON. What is his name again? Oh, it slipped my mind. Terrible. Kevin GRERGSON. You guys have any thoughts on Kevin GRERGSON? It's totally unrelated to the Nova Scotia thing, in a way, but not really. But does that not sound, some of that not sound strange to you? I'm carjacking your car. Oh, yeah. I'd really like that Lady Gaga CD, if you don't mind. Well, thank you for the car. Thank you. No Lady Gaga CD for you. I'm going to go and get somebody because I need a gun. I need somebody from the police with a gun. But I have a gun. What? Check the warrants for the truth. Blah, blah, blah. Unrelated. Yes, it is unrelated. You're absolutely right. You know, and how can I top? Oh dear, I can't. Great video, guys. Check it out. Check it out. Honest, awesome. That thing should be going like viral, because if it does, the RCMP kind of might have to come out and be like, well, no, you guys are seeing things. Maybe he'll have to run off and do a lengthy interview, which you'll never see. But the victims will be told about it for 5 days. Anybody have any opinions on any of this? Anybody? We can all start worshiping the cube. Oh, Todd. Yeah, if all RCMP enforced, and it didn't matter what he did right or wrong, the RCMP are going to mold the story to whatever suits them. I mean, this guy really got run around. If he did rape a little girl, that is absolutely beyond horrendous. But frankly, the RCMP were trying to charge him with stuff that there wasn't anything there. And they were trying to get people to say things against him for how many years? The cube, like the stone in Mecca? Yeah, that's one of the cubes. I wonder if I have some other... I know I've got lots of other interesting things, but I do have things... but I can't share them right now, which will build upon what we saw today, maybe a little bit. It would be really great to get an official timeline drawn out here. I'm going to finish up the... it's going to take me a little bit, but I'm going to put all the condensed version of the 13 hours of the EMS Colchester tapes out, and then have a listen, take some notes or whatever. There's some interesting ones in there. The times are in there, and then that'll go along. We can put it together with the other timeline, because that one that we played that one night was pretty horrendous. Somebody very Tracy, I believe it was, over on the Doxcord, which is pretty awesome. I keep pumping the Doxcord. I should pump likes, like my video, subscribe to my channel. But no, if you guys want to join the Doxcord, it's super, super awesome over here. We're up 152 of people. Seamus, you checked out Norman Trusty. He has a lot of stuff regarding the RC. I have heard of this person. I don't know. If you have anything, please send it to me, either on Twitter, Tracy, or in the... is this the same Tracy? I don't know. Tracy that had the excellent stuff about the... Really? Sorry, I'm just reading a post here. Oh, cert. Mixed feelings, yeah. It seems to be a real... But clearly they're not very supportive of their members. They don't really care. They didn't care about this man's life. They did want to ruin him. And in the end, like that article says, they got their man, some. Anyway, I won't keep you. I do hope that you have a fantastic Friday. Keep those tips coming, please. Please do, please. We need them. We've got them. We've got them, right? Just keep them running. Keep them dodging. They're on the defense now. I think they've been on the defense for a long time. probably since the beginning. I think they floated a lot of stuff out here and they're like, oh, people will just buy this. It's okay. We've done it before lots of times. People won't look, they won't see. But by this time, people are really upset. And frankly, their actions subsequently, which was where I started this whole video of dishonesty in respect to we're not getting the honesty still from the RCMP. Here, they're not telling people, once again, to stay safe, as in we have an active shooter or whatever on the loose. No, what they're going to tell you is that the person was a missing person, but they had all their firearms out. So I don't know what kind of missing person they require all of their carbines that they got special approval for. Not sure about that. No problem, Amy. We're all doing it together. Seamus, Google Dennis Ryong lost guns document. Okay, let's do that. I love Google. It tells me the right answer the first time, every time. I like Moorberg. Dennis R. Young. Young. I'm presuming it's R. Young. Lost guns document. Lost guns document. Oh, is this the 512 guns or whatever? I think we've seen that one. Yeah, 813. Yeah, this made, I think it made it into the Sun, didn't it? I don't think we're dealing with lost guns. I mean, in Mr. Wortman's case, he has a police car. He has multiple police uniforms. He has puffy jackets. He has a police badge. Sounds awful like police officer. Just saying. But that's why they don't want the guns. They don't want the guns ever to be known because they probably are RCMP issue weapons. And then that would kind of be the nail in the coffin. You can't exactly say, well, you know what, those are fake RCMP weapons and, oh, he just got those from across the border. He gets a fake car, he has real uniforms, but nobody gets charged. He has, like, come on. It's just, the spin is unbelievably horrible. Should we go through the article? Is that what you'd like me to do? This is from 2017, 2005 to 19. So lost handguns, 469, 54 rifles, shotguns, 101. Submachine guns is at, oh, we've got, do we get to look at this or no? Okay, here we go. So it's going to give us the Excel spreadsheet of all the breakdown. So they're just losing guns. Maybe, don't worry. If you're ever looking for one, it's out there in the forest where the RCMP officers drop them while they get shot in the foot. And they never tell you about that. Who is the mystery person who got shot? Who is the mystery member who got shot in the foot? Certainly isn't certainly is not. Where do we have that one picture? Oh. Right. Where did I put that? Oh, whatever. I showed it earlier. I can't remember who that was. Was that Todd that found that? Todd, I think, found that, of an excellent find. Because I don't think I could find the video. I looked around a little bit for it. I know it was in the Daily Mail. They had the video. Funnily enough, that was the only place that had it before. It was in Daily Mail that had Morrison walking around the day after getting shot. So who's the guy who got shot in the foot? Nobody receives lots of cash, plans to kamikaze. Yes, you see, a lot of these arguments are really really intellectually quite lightweight arguments that the RCMP are throwing out and can be defeated quite easily. The business about how he had to liquidate everything and he wanted all his liquid cash. Do we all remember that he was sending emails to somebody about entering into business negotiations? He wasn't sound like he was on the run, number one. Number two, certainly didn't sound like he was liquidating assets. It sounded like he was purchasing businesses. Not somebody who's terrified of the epidemic. Terrified of the epidemic. Look more like Poirot. No, DC. That is really slanderous on Poirot. Poirot is meticulous. You cannot have two boiled eggs that aren't the same size. You have to have them exactly the same. He's going to measure them. OCD. Let's see what else we've got here. Types of guns. Sorry, I'm reading sideways. Access to information. This is another thing. Anybody here who is familiar with access to information requests, as in has made them before? I never have. There's a reason I haven't, particularly, but at this point in time, I'm willing to, throw that away, simply just because the truth is far more imperative. But anybody who is familiar with filing them and has actually filed them before, I would be very interested in speaking with you on that process, because I never personally have done that. And if we look back to the Cone of Silence article, Palango's article, Cone of Silence, RCMP. Cracks are forming in the Cone of Silence. What? Why are you sending me that? I don't want this Reddit. Get this Reddit stuff out. In this article, very excellent article. I will link it right now in the chat. Anybody who's not familiar with it, it is a very good read. And he has a conversation with the cryptic description on the cell phone call display, the deep throat whistleblower. This is coming from Palango, so I think he's pretty certain about what he's writing. He's verified the source clearly. I don't know how. He doesn't get into that. But he talks about the Heidi Stevenson and just being bad luck, which I think we all kind of can agree that maybe we're not talking about, probably like high likelihood, 99 percentile, that Heidi Stevenson was not killed by Mr. Wortman. The time doesn't line up. The facts don't line up. I've seen some information that doesn't line up. So he's saying it's just bad luck. Why would he say it's bad luck? It sounds to me awful like bad luck. Maybe friendly fire shooting. Or maybe it's even worse than friendly fire, but certainly sounds like it. And he also says it's all about the money. And in reference to Heidi Stevenson, he says it will all come out. And here we have make the requests, filing the access to information request. So I would be interested in doing these. I just don't know how to do it. So I would like somebody with some expertise on how to do that. I mean, I've read about them over the years and stuff, and I've watched how they bury them. But anybody who has, please contact me, so we can get that together for all of us. And we've got to figure out. You have to figure out exactly what you're asking for. Certain things, and they take time and they cost money. But I'm sure, between all of us, we can figure all that out. And the other thing he said was just keep following the money. Keep following the money. Broman doesn't interest me as much as, funnily enough, Northumberland Investments. Northumberland Investments has a lot of people that sit on it. It's out of a residential address. Todd did a ton of digging around, got all kinds of information on it. Thanks, Todd. I just know that because Todd sends me stuff. So, but obviously everybody's doing a lot of hard work. I have to review. Funnily enough, this weekend I'm going to try and review the docks court a little bit more. And another thing I was going to mention was I was advised by somebody that's a common name in all of this story, who is fighting for the good guys. Let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to get into specifics. But I've spoken with that person, and I had quite a lengthy conversation with them. They were very kind to me. Made them aware of what we're doing, and they suggested one line of research, which would be the officers, I think it's two female officers at the end of Portapique Road. 1 to 2 female officers. And there's very scant information on it. Anybody who does have information on it, if you could send it to me, I think they're kind of giving me some good tips to pursue that might break open some stuff. And perhaps if we can give them that information, who knows where that can go too. Anyway, I'm going to go through a couple of your comments. Thank you very much for paying attention to my 2.5 hour stream. You have to be a bit patient. Isn't that what the guy said? He does these streams, but you have to be a bit patient. Side by side, you think that they look by them. They look the same, Poirot and Mortman. That was another thing. And this one actually is really important. For those of you that are on the docs court, going to try to organize, I've mentioned it before, but really get after it and organize the Zoom meeting, because I would really like to hear the stuff that you're coming across firsthand from you, and it will give a chance for everybody to speak. We'll kind of, I'm not sure the format exactly, but I think we're going to do something like, Steve, Adrian, and I. Adrian, by the way, which will be joining me, I believe, Sunday evening. The return of Adrian. He's been busy doing a couple of other things, but he's been working away in the background, tough on this one too. Information below. Please subscribe to their channel, Steve, Kage, and obviously Adrian, our good friend. But have something like that, we would moderate the Zoom meeting, and everybody would get like a 5-minute rotation or something like that. And then you could kind of do a question and answer thing or something like that. if you have any suggestions, let me know. But that was kind of what Steve and I talked about, and I know he set that up for all of us. So that would be really great if we could get, because I want to like really hear what you guys have to say. That's important, not just me droning on. And I actually learn a lot better when I hear somebody. No murder is overlooked. It looks really bad on Brinks if they get robbed, so they bury it. Yeah, I don't know about Brinks getting robbed. We're dealing with some real seedy stuff here, I think. Seedy. Anyone know the name of the security company in Edmonton that was one of the guards gunned down his crew to take the money? That is the one of their guards gunned down. I am not familiar with that. I think Toronto dealing, confiscating stolen guns. Oh, that's interesting. Wouldn't surprise me. Corrupt cops. I just, I see a world that is so different than what we have. Guy at Rita Hall still facing released gun detail. Oh, yeah, I was talking about. Do you guys also remember that story? One day I'm gonna go. There's a whole slew of stories I've got sitting around that I want to get into, but the one about Trudeau when he was official opposition leader and his house got broken into, and then the noted sergeant that was investigating the case, there was knives all over the floor. I think it was knives or on the counter. All the knives were taken out and there was a note. And then the well-noted Ottawa police sergeant that was investigating the case happened to kill himself a month later in his office. Rather strange. If I see one more cat on RCMP, they like the cats, eh? Thank you for your hard work and sexy hair. Wink, wink. Well, apparently it's not well liked, and but I'm not on this earth to please people with my hair. That's apparently not part of the deal. But apparently RCMP liked my hair. Become assimilated to the Borg, making shit up. He was doomed. Raped a little girl. He should have burned in hell. But if he did rape a girl, absolutely, that's just a horrendous thing. These pedo stuff, which is a topic that is like they've got it so that that's a tinfoil topic. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's because it mixes in with some people and their predilections at the top here. But that predilection is across society, so I don't think that's very tinfoily at all. But it's a big problem, especially down in the East Coast. Very big problem. Sad. Check warrants of the truth. Okay, so I have a few requests out to you guys, if possible. The FOIAs. I know Rabbi does FOIAs. Rabbi and I aren't probably on the same page anymore. But any help is good help, right? So there are the kind of requests, if you guys can help me out with, I really would appreciate it. So if you can give me some Zoom suggestions, that'd be great. We're going to do that, and we will do it. Got it ready to go. So we just need to set up a kind of a time and a day. I guess probably on the weekend is going to be good for people, and hopefully we can get as many people as we can to come out, and then we can hear a bunch of all the wonderful things that you guys are coming across, because working in different wavelengths and all kinds of different thoughts. We can just get it together a little bit more. Hey, Seamus. Hey, Jay. Jay Monte. I know you. I know you. This is an old friend of mine. I hadn't heard from her in a long time. And I was very, 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 very glad to hear from her. Very nice. Much love to you and your mom. So thank you for joining me. So that and the end of the road, Portapique Beach Road, if anybody has any firsthand knowledge of that or can put me or us in the right direction on that one, apparently we're kind of being, we're kind of being advised that may be a good road to pursue by somebody who is good in this one, let's put it. Very good and outspoken and very playing for the right team. So they said that this was be a very good one, the Portapique. So if you can send me any kind of stuff on that would be super. If you can send me any kind of stuff on anything, frankly, you can reach me Twitter DMs down below or on the Discord. And I try to answer. I try to even be polite in the best of times. Mr. Moneypenny dropping all kinds of stuff in here. Todd, wow, look at all this. Oh no. Todd, did you drop that in there just for me? Are you serious? Don't be doing that, man. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to hold you guys up. Thanks very much. Have a super, super rest of your, East Coast. It's now into Saturday. But the rest of your Friday, and we will hopefully touch base here in the next day or two. All right? Take care. God bless. Wonderful to see you, Jay. Love to your mom. Love to everybody.